Housekeeper spent a night in a billionaire's bed. What happened next will leave you speechless. The storm howled like a wounded animal, battering the luxurious mansion of Derek Westfield. Inside, Sarah, a weary housekeeper and dedicated mother, was trapped. She had always cleaned for the wealthy, never dreaming she would end up stuck here, away from her spirited 7-year-old daughter, Lily. The lightning flashed, illuminating the extravagant decor around her, a world of crystal chandeliers and leather sofas that felt foreign and oppressive. Just hours ago, she had been wiping floors in an upscale community, dreaming of a better life for herself and Lily, who believed in fairy tales. As the rain lashed down, Sarah wandered the mansion's opulent hallways, her heart heavy with worry for Lily. She stumbled across a guest suite filled with ornate trinkets that whisper stories of isolation and emotional chaos. For all its beauty, she could feel Derek's loneliness seeping from the walls. Was this what it meant to have everything? A life riddled with mansion-sized voids? News reports crackled in the background, hinting at the ethical controversies surrounding his high-powered company, painting a different picture of the man who owned this lavish estate. The next morning, Derek returned home to find Sarah, unceremoniously steeped in his world. As their eyes met, the weight of their circumstances shifted. "You shouldn't be here," he said, frowning. "This is no place for the help." But the warmth in his tone betrayed his judgment. "I'm just trying to get back to my daughter," Sarah replied, the simmer of anger igniting. "You think I want to be in a place like this?" Their conversation unfolded like a delicate dance, revealing their insecurities, a billionaire caught in webs of expectation and a housekeeper navigating life's merciless tides. Both had their burdens, and in that intimate moment, they recognized the humanity in one another. They weren't so different after all. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Yet as Sarah stepped cautiously into the light of the morning after their heartfelt exchange, the world outside was not as forgiving. News of their meeting spread like wildfire through the neighborhood, met with snickers and scorn. Comments flew. What was he thinking? Why would a billionaire talk to a housekeeper? Sarah's dignity felt threatened, her resolve cracking like the storm from which she'd just escaped. She thought of Lily, who deserved better than the shame society weighed upon her, but then, Derek took a stand. In a public address that left the community buzzing, he defended Sarah. "We are all human, aren't we? You can't presume to judge someone's worth based on the work they do." With those words, the boundaries of their lives felt like they were shifting, yet the weight of societal judgment loomed large. As their connection unfolded, both were left wondering, would they rise above the noise, or would they succumb to the harsh realities of the world around them? The stakes were high, but their hearts yearned for change. Trust? Friendship? Love? What would it take to forge a bond against all odds? The storm that had once trapped Sarah now seemed like a prelude to a greater tempest of emotions that neither of them knew how to navigate. The days turned into a blur for Sarah. She became a ghost within Derek's mansion, drifting through rooms filled with luxury that felt heavier now with mixed emotions. Each time she crossed paths with Derek, the air crackled with tension. Their connection deepened, but with each moment, the walls of their worlds reminded her of the divides between them. Derek may have defended her publicly, but whispers remained. People were quick to judge, pulling her name into their gossip like a tidal wave. Sarah felt the sting of shame each time she caught wind of their whisperings, but she pressed on, determined not to allow the opinions of others to dictate her worth. She couldn't lose sight of Lily, waiting at home, her innocence untouched by the claws of critique. One quiet afternoon, as Sarah folded fresh linens, Derek entered the room. He looked different that day, more vulnerable, perhaps, as the weight of his responsibilities hung visibly on his shoulders. Can we talk? He asked, his hands shoved deep in his pockets. The mere idea sent a flutter through her heart. What could he possibly want? Sure, she replied, trying to maintain her composure, though her stomach twisted in knots. Derek grabbed a chair and sat across from her. I wanted to ask you something. How do you keep going? Despite everything? His voice wavered, and she caught a glimpse of a man stripped bare, revealing a concern that transcended their titles. Lily, she answered instinctively. She needs me. I can't let her down. Every day is for her. I fight to give her a life that lets her dream big. His eyes softened. I wish I had that kind of driving force. I used to think I had it all, but sometimes, it feels empty. Do you think it's worth it? Sarah hesitated. To answer that was to pour salt into her own wounds. What does it matter? You have money, status isn't that what we're all told we want? Not when you're alone, he whispered, the admission hanging awkwardly between them. The silence echoed, and Sarah could feel her heart breaking for him. The truth was undeniable, they were both prisoners in their own ways, shackled by the expectations of society, different chains but equally binding. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door, interrupting the moment. A member of his staff entered, visibly flustered, and delivered a message that made Derek's countenance darken. It was about the company. The controversy had escalated. Investors were pulling out, and his reputation was on the line. Excuse me, he muttered, pushing away from the table. As he left the room, Sarah felt the space grow larger, filled with the weight of everything unsaid between them. It was clearer than ever that they were wedged into their roles, him, the captain of a sinking ship, and her, a mere cleaner on the deck. Left there alone, she wondered about the implications of what had just transpired. Their moment of connection had stirred something deeper within her, pushing at boundaries she thought were safe. The pressure to compartmentalize her life threatened to crack wide open, and she sensed a change in the air, a shift waiting to unfold. As the clock on the wall ticked down, Sarah knew she needed to make a choice. Would she remain confined to her past, or allow herself to step into whatever precarious future beckoned beyond the mansion walls? But just as she contemplated stepping into the unknown, a loud crash from the direction of the study jolted her from her thoughts. What was happening now? Sarah's heart raced. The sound echoed through the mansion, slicing through the stillness like a knife. She was on her feet before she even realized it, trading hesitation for instinct. What if Derek needed her? The hallway felt long as she made her way to the study, the elegant decor now heavy with an air of foreboding. The gleaming wood of the doors seemed so solid, a barrier between her and the chaos beyond. She hesitated for just a moment, breath caught in her throat, before she pushed the door open. Inside, papers were strewn everywhere like a storm had ripped through, scattering Derek's meticulous plans. Derek stood beside his desk, one hand gripping the edge, jaw clenched. His face was a mask of frustration tinged with fear. The moment he noticed her standing there, his expression shifted to something softer, almost vulnerable. Sarah, he said, running a hand through his hair. I didn't expect you to come in. What happened? She asked, stepping further into the room. Just more bad news, he replied, frustration lacing his voice. Investors are pulling out. They're worried about my reputation, the way the media is portraying everything. It's all falling apart. As he spoke, Sarah felt that familiar swell of empathy. Here was this man, surrounded by all the trappings of wealth, and still so burdened by what lay outside. Can't you find a way to make them see the truth? She asked, not fully understanding her own hope. Derek shook his head. It's not just the investors. It's the board. They want a scapegoat. They're aiming to pin it all on me. A chill ran down her spine. How could this be happening? You can't let them do that. You're so much more than their rumors. He looked at her, searching her face, and in that moment, their eyes locked, a connection sparking in the charged air. She could see the weariness around his eyes and a flicker of something deeper, a hope, perhaps, a longing for understanding that transcended their worlds. "I feel powerless, Sarah," he confessed. "And the worst part is," he sighed, trailing off as if he were wrestling with his own thoughts. "What?" she pressed, stepping even closer. He inhaled deeply, as if mustering courage. "I can't do this alone. I don't want to be alone. But I don't know how to break down these walls, not when there are so many layers." To hear him say that struck a chord deep within her. "You don't have to. You have people who care about you," she urged, bringing it all back to their shared experience. "You have me." The air shifted again, heavy with unspoken words, thick and tangible. In that space, it was almost as if they were floating above their troubles, daring to dream of a hopeful tomorrow among the chaos. But it didn't last. Just outside the door, muffled voices raised in urgency pulled both of them back to reality. Derek's gaze darted toward the sound, and she felt a sharp pang in her chest. This moment that connection might slip away just as quickly as it had come. He turned back to her, his expression torn. "I need to handle this. But thank you for being here." As he stepped away, Sarah realized how quickly things could shift. Left standing in the mess of the study, she felt the weight of uncertainty settle in her stomach. Alone again, the silence crept back, and she thought of Lily, her little girl who remained far from the complexities of their lives. Then, a sudden thought crashed over her. What if standing by Derek was the key to giving both of them a chance to redefine their stories? What would that mean for her and for her daughter? Before she could ponder too long, a loud banging echoed through the hall, the door bursting open, revealing a group of Derek's team, faces pale and urgent. "Derek! We need you." Sarah's heart dropped as she watched him turn, caught between two worlds, the crumbling facade of his empire and the vulnerable connection they had forged. What choice would he make? What path lay ahead in the chaos that surrounded them? And just like that, the future hung precariously in the balance. The commotion in the hallway grew louder, pulling Derek back to the urgency of the moment. "I'll be right there," he called out, his voice a mix of authority and dread. He shot Sarah a quick glance that felt like an anchor, but before she could respond, he turned and rushed to join his team. Left in the study, Sarah felt the walls close in around her. She wanted to yell for him to come back, to finish the conversation, to explore that fragile connection they had almost discovered. The air was thick with tension, and her heart ached at the sudden distance carved out between them. She peered around the room, taking in the scattered papers, the tense atmosphere. Each page held a piece of Derek's world, one that no longer felt so distant. She was in it now, tangled up in the same chaos that threatened to destroy him. "Why do I care so much?" she whispered to herself, folding one of the papers half-heartedly. It read like a script of his life, with numbers and projections that felt like weights hanging above their heads. She took a deep breath, reminding herself that he had said he needed her. The door swung wide again, but it was different this time. It wasn't Derek coming back, it was one of his team members, a woman with a clipboard, facial expressions flared with stress. "Excuse me, ma'am, I need you to step aside. We have to set up for a conference call." "No, wait." Sarah instinctively raised her hands. "I can help." "Where do you need me?" Surprise flickered in the woman's eyes, followed by a tight nod. "If you could," she hesitated, glancing to make sure Derek couldn't see. "Just hold these papers for a minute. I need to reorganize a few things before he gets back." Sarah took the papers, her fingers brushing over the typed words that felt too heavy for her hands. It was like juggling someone else's life while her own crumpled in the background. But she couldn't ignore the need to do something, to make a difference in the spiraling situation. "Here," the team member gestured around the room. "We set up the call right here on his desk. Just keep them in order until he gets back." With every passing minute, Sarah could feel the timeline tighten like a noose. She shuffled the papers, aligning them as best as she could. It was a small act of solidarity, but it made her feel like she was part of something larger, a lifeline thrown into Derek's tumultuous sea. Strains of Derek's voice flooded into the room, a faint echo of his determination mixed with the worry that had become his constant companion. "No, we can't afford to lose this deal. I will not let them back me into a corner," he had said. Those words made something shift within her. Sarah thought of Lily and how much she wanted to protect her from fighting her own battles alone. What if Derek felt the same way? What if they both learned to battle together in a world that threatened to swallow them whole? A loud thud resounded from the hallway, startling her. The woman jumped, and then they both held their breath as they watched the door swing open violently. Derek stood there, his face lined with determination and frustration, his team trailing behind him like shadows. "Get ready!" he barked, his gaze catching Sarah's just for a moment before he turned to his team. "If we're going to save this, we need every bit of support." Suddenly, Sarah felt included in that rush of energy. This wasn't just his journey anymore, it had become theirs. What if standing by him wasn't just about support, but a shared fight for triumph? As Derek launched into a strategy, Sarah's heart thudded with hope and trepidation. She realized she was no longer an outside observer, she was in the thick of it, ready to help shape the outcome. But what would happen when the dust settled? Would they forge ahead as allies, or would the remnants of their moments together be lost to ambition and chaos? The insistent knocking echoed once more, and just like before, the world outside threatened to break in. But this time, Sarah was ready to confront whatever came next. Derek swept into the room, his presence filling the space with a palpable energy. Sarah felt herself drawn in, the chaotic thoughts in her head receding as she focused on him. The urgency in his voice resonated, and it was clear this moment was critical. "All right, listen up," he commanded, his team snapping to attention. "We need to recalibrate our pitch. We can't let this deal slip away. Sarah, keep those papers organized." He gestured toward her, eyes blazing with determination. "You're doing great." His confidence washed over her like a warm tide, igniting a spark deep inside. Sarah knew the stakes were high, but somehow, she felt lighter, more engaged. She quickly shuffled the papers, aligning figures and projections with newfound focus. They seemed less daunting this time, more like opportunities she could help seize. An outline of strategic points formed around her in the room, her heart racing as Derek began to outline their strategy. His passion was infectious, and she found herself hanging on every word. She couldn't help but think about how much he cared, how deeply involved he was with this world. "Strength is in the numbers," Derek said, his voice rising with excitement. "We can turn this around, but only if we work together. We have to project unity, show them we're all in this together." The team rallied around him, nodding, taking notes, tossing ideas back and forth. It felt like a whirlwind, spinning mostly around him, but she was right at the eye of the storm. And in that moment, something shifted within her. She was no longer just supporting Derek, she was part of something greater than her own worries. Together, they could face any challenge. As Derek spoke, she felt a warmth settle over her, a blend of purpose mingling with the urgency of the situation. But it was fleeting. In the rush of adrenaline and hope, the air became charged with something else, a tension that hinted at deeper struggles lying beneath the surface. Derek's brow furrowed as he paced the room, frustration bubbling under his calm exterior. Sarah's heart sank. She caught snippets of side conversations his team sounded frantic, whispers of timelines and objections from the board. A reality check crashed against the high of possibilities they had been riding. "Hold on," he paused, looking back at his team, "we need to address these concerns. I want everyone alert and ready. We cannot afford any slip-ups." His gaze landed on Sarah again, urgency mingling with something else, vulnerability. "You matter in this, Sarah. Don't underestimate that." His words strummed at her heartstrings, awakening a longing deep within her. But the moment shattered as the conference call began buzzing. Even as they started discussing strategies and potential pitfalls, the connection between her and Derek felt more fragile. Would the intensity of this whirlwind leave room for real emotional connections amid the chaos? Just then, the phone line crackled, and a voice boomed over the speaker. "Derek, we've got a problem." The air in the room thickened, the room brimming with concern as Derek's face went grave. He shot Sarah a look that spoke volumes, filled with questions and an unmistakable plea for support. "Keep it together," he whispered, almost to himself, and she felt the weight of his expectation resting heavily on her shoulders. At that moment, Sarah realized the stakes had just escalated. As Derek's team adjusted to the unfolding drama, she knew things were about to shift dramatically. Would she rise to the occasion? Would they all come together when it mattered most? As the voice on the phone laid out grave concerns, Sarah felt her pulse quicken. What could possibly happen next? Would this be the moment that launched them into triumph or take a turn for the worse? Her breath caught in her throat as uncertainty wrapped around her heart. The question echoed in the back of her mind: would they emerge from this chaos stronger, or would it tear them apart? The voice on the phone continued, each word cutting through the tension like a knife. "This is a deal-breaker, Derek. We have a competing offer that may come in before your presentation. You need to act now." Derek's jaw tightened, and Sarah felt it too, a sense of impending doom. She watched as Derek drew a breath, gathering himself, but there was a flicker of doubt in his eyes. He needed to project confidence, not just for himself, but for his team. "What's our timeline?" he asked, voice steady but low. "Less than 24 hours, the voice replied. "You'll need a new strategy, a complete overhaul." Sarah felt the walls closing in. She exchanged glances with her co-workers, who appeared equally bewildered. They had prepared tirelessly for this moment, and now, it felt like everything was about to crumble. Derek glanced around the room, meeting the worried faces of his team. Sarah could see him computing options, weighing possibilities that would save them. It was a moment of truth, a split-second decision that could make or break them. "Okay," he said slowly, his voice unwavering despite the storm swirling around them. "Let us take this one step at a time. We need to regroup. Sarah, can you draft a list of alternative strategies? Anything we can pivot to?" His directness pulled her back into the moment, reinvigorating her sense of purpose. "Yes, I can do that," she said, a sudden rush of determination flowing through her veins. She grabbed her laptop and began typing furiously, ideas popping into her mind like fireworks. Derek's eyes glimmered with pride at her response, and his appreciation soothed some of the tension within her. Just then, another voice chimed in, "How do we know they'll even consider a counteroffer? They've been set on this for a while." Doubt wove through the room, thickening the air as if they were all collectively holding their breath. In that moment, Sarah stood taller, her heart racing. What if we bring a personal touch to our proposal? Show them who we are, not just our numbers. People do business with people they trust. We could tell our story. Derek shot her a look filled with surprise, then admiration. "That's exactly it. We need to humanize this deal." He rallied the team around her suggestion, spinning newfound hope out of the raw chaos. As they brainstormed, Sarah's excitement began to overshadow her fears. The energy in the room shifted, morphing into something palpable: possibility. The doubts chipped away, one by one, replaced by laughter and camaraderie as they dutifully crafted their narrative. But just as she felt herself getting swept away by the flow of creativity, Derek's expression hardened again. He glanced at the clock. Time was slipping through their fingers, and the weight of the world seemed to rest solely on him. "All right, team," he said, voice steady but strained. "We have some heavy lifting ahead. We need to prepare for every conceivable angle they might throw at us. Are you with me?" The team replied in unison, a chorus of support that heartened them. "Yes." But Sarah could see the worry behind their fire. As they split off into groups, Sarah's mind raced with thoughts. Could they outmaneuver this challenge? Would their unity hold strong? In her heart, she felt a titanic swell of hope battling against uncertainty. What if this challenge not only defined their deal but also defined the bonds between them? And then, the gravity of it all hit her. Beneath the urgency and excitement, there was a question looming. Was it only about the business now, or would it reveal something deeper among themselves, specifically between her and Derek? The atmosphere thickened with anticipation. Sarah glanced over at Derek, who was furiously jotting down notes with clenched fists. Could he really handle it? Outside, the city hummed with indifference, but inside, Sarah knew their world was about to change. She took a deep breath, overcoming the trepidation that clung tightly to her. "We can do this," she whispered to herself, feeling an unshakable bond with the team. But then the phone buzzed again, and the air shifted once more. What was waiting on the other end of that call could change everything. Would they stand united against the tide, or would they drown in the chaos? The seconds ticked away, each one heavy with the weight of unspoken thoughts. Derek's eyes darted toward the buzzing phone on the table, the screen lighting up like a beacon of impending news. The team quieted, a collective breath held tight in their chests. "Are you going to take it?" Sarah asked, her voice barely above a whisper, but it carried the anxious curiosity of everyone in the room. Derek hesitated, his brow furrowed. "It could be a game changer," he said finally, his gaze steady on Sarah. "But it could also be a distraction." The weight of leadership pressed on him, and she felt a pang of empathy for the burden he bore. "Let us hear it," another teammate chimed in. "We need every piece of information we can get." Derek sighed, reaching for the phone. The room buzzed with nervous anticipation. He answered the call, the tension palpable as he muttered acknowledgments into the receiver. Sarah focused on Derek's face, trying to decipher the news just from his expressions. With each passing moment, Sarah felt her heart race faster. Would it be bad news or a breakthrough? She could feel the restless energy swarming around her as the minutes dragged on, the murmurs fading into a thick silence. Finally, Derek's expression shifted, a mix of surprise and determination. "You're telling me about a backdoor deal? And you think it's still viable?" He listened intently, nodding as he scribbled notes. Sarah's stomach turned. A backdoor deal? It could kill their chances, and yet, it could also be an edge away to play both sides. Derek was processing rapidly, his mind clearly weighing the risks. When he hung up, the silence returned, heavier than before. "It's worse than we thought," he said. "But there's a way we can turn this to our advantage." "What do you mean?" Sarah asked. Her adrenaline surged, flickering between hope and dread. Derek took a steadying breath. "We can use the information we have to create an even stronger narrative. If they're gaming the system, we shine a light on it. Corporate ethics, integrity, these matters resonate with our counterparts." "I like it," Sarah said, feeling the rush of adrenaline. "We can out them and position ourselves as the trustworthy choice." The team nodded in collective agreement, the fire of determination reigniting. "Okay, let us build our case," Derek said, his confidence surging anew. As they shifted gears, Sarah felt a powerful current of solidarity building. But beneath all the strategy, her instinct still whispered questions. Was Derek leading them towards victory or peril? The echoes of his earlier doubts still haunted her thoughts, the flicker of uncertainty not easily ignored. As the team gathered their ideas and dove into their work, Sarah felt a bond forming, the thrill of a shared mission. Moments passed quickly, infused with laughter and excitement as they crafted the message they needed to deliver. Yet, even as creativity flowed, Sarah could feel Derek's gaze lingering on her more than usual. Each glance was charged, filled with something unspoken. It made her heart flutter and her mind race. Did he feel it too? Just as her thoughts spiraled into an exhilarating mix of professional ambition and personal connection, the shrill sound of the fire alarm pierced the air. It shattered the focused atmosphere, panic rising like smoke in the room. Evacuate. Now. Derek shouted, his voice cutting through the chaos. What is happening? Sarah yelled, rushing toward the exit, heart pounding not just from fear but from the new uncertainty spinning in her head. They all filed out, the urgency overwhelming. The reality of their project hung in the balance, overshadowed by real danger. There were questions now, both for their future and for Sarah's growing feelings for Derek. As they spilled out onto the street, smoke swirled in the air, and sirens echoed through the city. What could this mean for their deal? Would they survive the fire both literally and metaphorically? In that moment it was clear, their unity was being tested in ways they never anticipated. And as the flames flickered behind them, a new question took root in Sarah's mind. Was this crisis not just a challenge for their business, but a confrontation of everything she felt for Derek? Panic seeped from the building like thick, black smoke, swirling around Sarah as she stumbled into the street. The rush of adrenaline hit her full force, a surge that made her heart pound against her ribcage. She blinked, trying to process everything: the flames, the urgency, and the unsettling tension sparking between her and Derek. Stay together. Derek called out, his voice carrying above the chaos as he gathered the team close. They formed a tight circle, faces painted in worry and confusion, and that instinct to protect surged within him. Is everyone accounted for? Sarah asked, eyes darting around. She felt the need to check on everyone, but her gaze was drawn back to Derek. His expression was fierce and focused, but underneath it all, she could sense the raw intensity of his emotions: fear, concern, and something else, something deeper. We're all here, one teammate replied, shaking slightly. What do we do now? Derek looked serious. We can't go back inside. We need to find a safe spot. His eyes lingered on Sarah a moment longer. Let us head to that cafe across the street. They'll have coffee, and we can regroup. We need to keep our heads clear and focus on our next steps. The idea of a momentary break filled with caffeine thrilled her in a strange way, a small comfort amid chaos. As they moved toward the cafe, she bumped shoulders with Derek, and the electricity between them crackled even more. It was confusing and exhilarating. Or was it just fear? Once inside, they found a corner table far from the windows. The barista rushed to meet them, his eyes wild with concern as smoke drifted closer. They ordered a round of coffees, but thoughts of caffeine did little to drown out the chaos outside. Sarah could barely sip her drink, her mind racing. Will this affect our timeline? One of the team members asked, anxiety wrinkling her brow. What about the deal? It will. We need to account for this setback, Derek affirmed, his jaw tight. But it doesn't mean we can't adapt. We're already halfway there. Sarah couldn't ignore the way his tone commanded respect, but also brought a sense of stability that momentarily calmed her racing heart. She leaned in, feeling a need to connect with him in the light of all this uncertainty. Derek, she started, feeling her cheeks warm. Are you okay? I mean, with everything happening? He hesitated, glancing away momentarily, a flicker of vulnerability crossing his face. Yeah, I'm fine. Just thinking about our options. This is serious. Of course, she replied, but inside, she felt the thrill of their shared experience. They needed to get through this, but did they also need to face their own feelings? Derek met her gaze, searching for something. We will make it through this. Together. His words lit a fire within her. Was he talking about the team, or was it something more? She took a deep breath, a mix of hope and fear swirling inside her. Just then, the cafe door burst open, and a well-dressed man rushed in, his expression frantic. There's been an explosion. He shouted. Everyone needs to evacuate. The barista's face went pale, and panic took over the cafe. Sarah's stomach dropped. Derek! She exclaimed, fear pooling in her chest. What do we do now? Before he could respond, another loud crash echoed from the direction of their office building. Time seemed to suspend for a heartbeat, and in that moment, clarity struck Sarah. They were facing a literal fire, but the real flames between her and Derek needed to be acknowledged too. "Let us go," Derek shouted, pulling her toward the door, his grip firm around her wrist. As they stepped outside into the chaos, with sirens blaring and people shouting all around, Sarah realized something profound. They were in the middle of a crisis, but perhaps it was also a turning point. What would happen when the smoke cleared, and would they dare to address the fire brewing between them? She could feel the tension emblazoned between them, and the question grew sharper in her mind as they ran into the unknown. What would their first move be now? And could they face whatever came next together? The air outside was thick with confusion and uncertainty. People were rushing past, their faces grim, casting nervous glances at the thickening smoke. Sirens wailed in harmony with the chaos, a cacophony that twisted Sarah's stomach in knots. She felt Derek's grip tighten around her wrist as he led her through the throng. "Over here," he shouted, pointing towards a nearby alley that seemed to promise a momentary reprieve from the tumult. The team followed, scrambling to keep close. As they slipped into the narrow space, Sarah's heartbeat was louder than the sounds of the street. Once they were sheltered, Derek turned to assess the group. Their faces were pale, shadows of their confident selves just moments ago. "We stay calm," he voiced firmly, though weariness danced in the corner of his eyes. "We regroup and figure out our next step. What matters is that everyone was safe for now." "What about our office?" someone murmured, panic bubbling to the surface like a boiling pot. Derek ran a hand through his hair, a gesture that made Sarah's heart twist. "We deal with one issue at a time. Our priority is getting clear of this mess. We'll find a new way to push forward." Sarah felt the weight of unspoken words hovering in the air, urgent and electric. As the tension coiled tightly, she sought Derek's gaze, willing him to read her thoughts, the chaos around them fading into a blur. She needed to confide, to strip away the layers of fear and uncertainty that clawed at her heart. "Derek," she began, voice barely a whisper, if anything happened we'll figure it out," he interrupted, but his sharp gaze softened, acknowledging the gravity behind her words. "I promise. It's going to be okay." But was it really? There was a heaviness in her chest, a squeeze of anxiety that wouldn't let go. Outside, shouts and the drone of emergency responders formed a backdrop to their moment. The world felt charged, as if everything spun on the precipice of change, and they had to step into that shift together. Just then, a loud explosion burst from the direction of the cafe, shaking the alley and sending debris into the air. Sarah instinctively reached for Derek, clutching his arm. "What was that?" He flinched, glancing back towards the noise, eyes wide with shock. "We need to move. Now." With urgency propelling them forward, they stepped back into the fray. People were scattering, confusion palpable in the air like a thick fog. Derek guided their team, shouting for everyone to follow him as they navigated the chaos. Sarah stayed close to his side, grateful for his presence and leadership. The sensation of his warmth beside her stoked both fear and resolve. Suddenly, Derek faltered, pulling her aside into a hidden alcove, catching his breath. "We can't lose anyone else," he said, breath rasping. "Not now. We need to stick together." "I know. But what if we don't make it out of here?" she said, fear creeping into her voice. The uncertainty swelled like a storm cloud overhead. He searched her face, his blue eyes piercing through the din. "That's not going to happen. We just have to trust each other. We'll find a way. Together." Their foreheads nearly touched, the intensity of the moment wrapping around them like a protective shield. Sarah could see in Derek's eyes a fierce determination, but also a flicker of something deeper that tethered her heart in place. It was a moment suspended in time with the world around them crumbling. They stood together, but before she could respond, a distant explosion sent a tremor through the ground, snapping them both back to reality. The sound echoed ominously, reminding them how fragile their lives were, how everything could change in an instant. This way, Derek urged, pulling her along as they gathered the rest of the team. As they rushed forward, with the flames licking ever closer, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that they needed to confront their fears, not just of the danger around them but of the journey ahead. What lay beneath the surface of their connection, amid the chaos, a question pressed against her consciousness like an unanswered prayer: could they transform this crisis into a moment of truth about their feelings? As sirens blared and buildings crumbled, Sarah felt the weight of the decision hanging in the air, desperate for release. What would happen when they faced it? How far could this lead them, and would they truly confront the fire brewing between them in the aftermath of collapse? They burst into a courtyard, a small oasis from the chaos, but the air remained thick with uncertainty. Sirens wailed, and the distant echo of confusion reminded Sarah of how quickly everything could unravel. Her heart raced. They had escaped one peril, but now the true test lay ahead. Derek turned to the team, his face a mask of leadership. "We regroup here for a moment." He was steady, but his eyes flickered with unspoken worry as they scanned the surroundings. They huddled together, trying to catch their breath, trying to shake off the tremors of fear that still coursed through them. "Do we wait for the fire department?" one team member questioned, glancing nervously back toward the rising smoke. "No," Derek responded quickly, shaking his head. "We can't depend on them to clear the way. We need to make our own plan." The urgency in his voice filled Sarah with new energy. She stepped closer to him, feeling that electric connection, but it was cloaked under layers of anxiety. "What about the deal?" she blurted out, focusing on the task at hand. "We can't let our plans fold, too." His gaze met hers, intense and fierce. "We will adapt. We can think on our feet." Suddenly, his expression softened. "But I need you in this." Her heart fluttered at his words. It felt like a deeper connection than just business. The chaos around them fell away, swirling smoke fading to the background as the reality of their bond came to the forefront. The truth hit her: she mattered to him. "We'll figure it out together." But even as they stood united, the question loomed in her mind like the smoke billowing higher. Would the changes in their relationship hold when the crisis passed? Would the sparks of their connection melt away under the weight of reality? Derek broke the silence of her thoughts. "I need all of you to stick close and keep your heads. We can't risk losing anyone else." He turned to look out over the fiery horizon. "There's still a path forward. Trust me." His voice rang with a determination that swept through the group, an unbreakable spirit. Just then, the ringleader of the crew who had taken cover stepped forward. "We could still get to the conference call. It might be chaos, but if we start the narrative now, we can protect our reputation." The idea hung in the air like a lifeline. Sarah leaned into the conversation, adrenaline sparking through her veins. "Yes. We can share our story, our truth. If we humanize this process, it could shift everything." Derek nodded vigorously, inspiration gleaming in his eyes. "Exactly. They need a reason to trust us. We'll tell them why we deserve another chance." Hope swelled within her. Here it was, the chance to solidify their bond while pursuing their dreams, but she still felt that unanswered question lodged deep within her heart. Could they break the walls of their respective worlds and face what was blossoming between them? As they set their plan, each step felt charged with potential. It was electric. The energy surged within the group, lifting spirits even as they braved the mist of uncertainty. In the seconds that ticked past, Sarah felt her pulse quicken as Derek's eyes found hers once more. "I need to know," he said, his voice firm yet gentle. "Do you trust me?" The air crackled. "With everything I have," she declared, the sincerity in her heart pouring into her words. They could redefine everything together, if they only had the courage to take the leap. "All right then. Let us fight for our future," he said, urgency propelling him forward. The team quickly arranged themselves, and Derek led the charge through the alley, determination etched on his face. As they turned onto the main street, the chaos unfolded before them again. But this time, Sarah felt armed with purpose. "We'll wait until those flames die down," she suggested. "Then we'll access our office from the back. We need to secure the hub for our proposal." Derek nodded, impressed at the intricacy of her insight. Who would have thought that escape from disaster would yield such clarity? It ignited something within, a spark of possibility that warmed her heart. But the deeper truth still loomed. In moments like these, the connection between them sizzled, hinting at something unsaid. With the world around them raging in turmoil, they needed to confront their feelings amid the flames. There lay a potential for something more. Could they transform the firestorm outside into a beacon of hope for their relationship? As they regrouped and strategized, Sarah felt the tension building like a storm cloud, heavy and electric. The vibe between her and Derek felt impossibly close, yet fraught. She could feel his presence beside her as they moved, and with every glance, her resolve shook. "Sarah," he said quietly, pausing just for a moment. "I just want you to know whatever happens, I want you in my corner." Sweat beaded on her forehead, heart pounding against her chest as his words unlocked every emotion she had been holding back. The chaos of the world seemed insignificant compared to the feelings that wove between them. They needed to confront what lay beneath the surface. "Derek, I stop." A team member shouted, snapping her attention back as another explosion rocked the square, sending ripples through their group. The urgency of reality flooded back in. "Let us not get sidetracked." Derek rallied. "Stay focused." They couldn't afford a diversion now, but as they hurried forward toward their destination, Sarah felt a rekindled strength bolstering her resolve. They would face the flames, both outside and inside of themselves. She turned to Derek, locking eyes. "We'll fight through this together," she vowed quietly, breathing courage into the moment. "Yes, we will," he replied, sincerity weaving through his words. Together, they would forge ahead through the chaos, through the fires, and perhaps even through the emotional storms that awaited them on the other side. It wasn't just about survival anymore, it was about learning how to thrive together. No matter the obstacles they faced, the uncertainty of life loomed large, but for the first time, they were navigating it side by side. And in that moment, Sarah realized that this journey could lead to more than just professional redemption. Perhaps it would open the door to something that had been growing all along, their intertwined destinies waiting to ignite in the aftermath of collapse. And as they pushed forward, the world around them flickered with possibility, the fire of hope replacing ashes of doubt. What lay ahead was still unknown, but armed with connection, they were ready to face whatever came next together. Now is your moment to dive deeper into the story by hitting that subscribe button immediately. Don't miss out on the new exclusive stories coming your way. And leave a like now to feed the algorithm and keep this journey alive. Comment your reactions and feelings about this emotionally charged ending below. Your insights matter. Don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this heartwarming transformation. Stand tall and show your true support for our journey.